I thought, you know, to talk about the prayer of gratitude. We wrapped up that series last week. But I'll tell you what I loved about that teaching, and again, if you haven't had a chance, please go online and listen to it. It's a challenging prayer. Like that whole series was pretty challenging if you think about it, because we're asking ourselves to pray even when life kind of falls apart on us, and to be able to do some of the hardest prayers that Jesus put forth from the cross. And so Dawn's gone through the ringer this past year and dealt with a lot of loss and different things. And for her to teach on that was an example. Like it truly was a live example of someone living it out. And that we don't have to have our lives perfectly together in order to make a difference. And I just wanted to share this because I've been thinking, I told you that one of the greatest things about being part of the church is that we have to take what's taught and then put it into action. Otherwise, it's just an exercise. And so I was thinking about this whole thing about being filled with gratitude, and she had us write on the whiteboard a couple of different examples. And I was thinking after the service, I was like, I would love to put on the whiteboard the second hug. And what I mean by that is, my wife and I visited our daughter Jenna, who's in college, a couple weekends ago, so it was the week before last Sunday. And the obligatory when you leave, they better give you a hug, right? I mean, that's the first one. So if you don't get that one, something's wrong. So we got the first one, and mind you, her boyfriend, right? This is her first boyfriend, so it's a big deal. We just went out to dinner, all that. It's a big deal for me. You can pray for me. My Uncle Terry's 67 years old, right? And his daughter's 25 years old. They got married later in life. And so his son goes, don't you think, is this the one for Tara, Dad? He's like, don't ask me that question. I don't care if I'm 67. Just don't ask that question, right? So here I am with my daughter and my wife and my daughter's boyfriend. And so she gave me the hug, and so I'm like holding on to her. And but then she came back for the second hug. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. I was like, oh my gosh. And I looked at Diane and said, I was like, I got the second hug. It's a beautiful thing. So Dawn made it real simple. Like, what are the things that make you smile? What are those things, Because it's in my role, it's hard because I talk to many of you. You don't come to me when life is good. You don't go, hey, Pastor, my life is great. Just wanted you to let you know that. When do you all call me? When do I get the text messages? It's when life sucks, right? That's when I get. So I see you at your best, and it's those beautiful moments that we have. And I ask you to pray in the midst of the crap, right? But that's why we did that series, because we need to know that we can be connected to a God that loves us, and that we don't have to have it perfect. And so I just thought Dawn did an amazing job, and so I'm so grateful for her to kind of just put everything else aside and give that teaching last week. Now, this morning, we have a couple of guest speakers, and I want to set this up because this is something new to us as a church. I've mentioned it from time to time. We're going to be talking about foster care. And is Aline here? Where is it? Is Aline here? No? Oh, Aline, wave your hand. Come running in, Aline. That's Aline. So as she comes in, this. Oh. Give Aline a hand clap. I know it. I only do it to people that don't get embarrassed. So Aline, maybe a couple of months ago, maybe a few months ago, called me up. And I was at my son's baseball game, and I had my headphones in, and she just went off on me. She was like 45 minutes. I'm like, whoa, you go. Like, this was awesome. She just was like on fire. What I mean by that, she's passionate about foster care. And she was saying, Sean, you just don't understand how awful the situation is. And she just went on with story after story after story. And I told her, and she's like, you got to do something about it. I don't know what I can do, but I'll try. So, it's a huge issue. And that as a church, we talk about this. Bill Hybels has a saying that the local church is the hope of the world when it's working right. When it's working right. And part of that, to me, is us caring for people that often get overlooked. So we talk about that all the time. But today, it's going to be very, very practical, very pragmatic, where you can say yes to a couple of different options. And I feel like as a church, this is part of our DNA. This is part of why we're here, that God has called us to be uncomfortable, to go where other people won't go, to do the things that are uncommon. And so I wanted to just read to you from James, because, it's so funny. Sometimes people, when I spend a lot of time out in the community, and I'll call it the unchurched. And so I like having conversations with the unchurched. But a lot of them say, well, you're religious. And I said, well, the way that you're defining religious, no, I'm absolutely not religious whatsoever. But this verse, if you call me religious based on this verse, then I hope that I absolutely am, and I hope that all of you are. So James 1:27 says this: religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans, to look after widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. This idea of looking after the orphans obviously is the part that we're going to be talking about this morning. In our society, there's real ways that we can make a difference. I really hope that as a church, and again, I don't know how many of you foster children. I know Eileen's daughter, Casey, does. Is she going to be here? Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That'll be later in. And some of you may already be fostering, and I'd love to know that. But so as a church, if we can get one more family to become a foster family, we're moving in the right direction. My wife and I are being challenged by this ourselves. We're thinking and praying about it, because I want to lead by example in this. There's going to be different ways for us to get involved. Now, some of you, you're going to hear different things, and it might be like, yeah, I want to be a foster parent, and that's a many-year journey. There's other times where it's a few months journey. There's also options where, you know what, maybe you're in a position that you have some financial means, and you could help support the family that's fostering a child. You know what I mean? Like, we're in this together, so we'll figure it out as we go. Last week, we brought in a person to talk about mentoring. Being able to spend time with kids that don't have parents or that figure in their life. Maybe we can play a role in that way. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. And I just want us to see that our responsibility from Scripture is for us to care about this and then hopefully do something about it. So I've asked Carole and Justin. Carole is from Boys Town in Providence, so she'll share a little bit about that. And then Justin's going to share where it's interesting because he's going to represent Bags of Hope, which we did last year. But come to find out through Kim, the one that I know that oversees Bags of Hope, that Justin actually went through Boys Town and actually has fostered two kids through Boys Town. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for us as a church to listen to Carole talk about what Boys Town represents. And then on the back end of that, if we have questions, they're going to hang around in the back in the cafeteria. You can ask them questions, get more information, anything like that. And then Justin's going to talk about Bags of Hope, and then I'll come back around that and talk. And Casey's going to share her story. So we got a lot going on this morning. So with that, come on, give it up for Carole.
I'm going to sit in this chair too. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Like Sean said, my name is Carole Wild, and I'm from Boys Town, New England. So Boys Town has been in New England for 25 years. We're a private social services agency. And Boys Town actually is a national thing as well. It's 100 years old. It was started in Omaha, Nebraska 100 years ago by Father Flanagan, a Catholic priest. We started out just as a home for boys, and now we've expanded. A lot of people ask, do you only take care of boys? No, we take care of everyone. But we stuck with the Boys Town name, and we take care of boys and girls. We have many different programs. But I work in the foster care program. I've worked in it for 2 years. And I've also been doing the recruiting and licensing and training for the last several months as my colleague, who that's her job. She's been out on maternity leave. So I get to be here with people like you and share about the need for foster care. So I'd like to share with you some numbers and discuss the great need for foster parents in Rhode Island. But before I do that, I want to give you a feel for what it's like for a child that's in care. So if you're comfortable, I'm going to ask that you close your eyes. I'm going to lead you through a little visualization exercise. So think back to when you were 10 years old. Think about where you lived, your neighborhood, your school. Imagine your friends, your teachers, your coaches. Maybe you have a best friend who's in your class at school. And there's that one teacher who's really funny, and she's a great teacher. She helps you after school because you have a hard time in math. You're on the soccer team, and you love your coach. You have a great team. After school, you like to play with your friends in your neighborhood, ride your bikes, explore. But then something happens. Your parents were shouting and screaming one night. You and your little brother were really scared. You saw your dad get violent, and it wasn't the first time this happened. But this time, the police come, and then someone you don't know comes, and they tell you that they are going to take you away from your parents. Your family doesn't have much, and the person who came to get you just tells you to get a few things, grab some clothes, you put it in a trash bag, and you get into the car with this stranger and your little brother. And then you find out that you and your brother aren't going to be able to stay together. Imagine being that child. Think to yourself, if you had a choice, would you prefer to stay with your sibling or leave them? Would you prefer to move to a home in your neighborhood in Woonsocket or move across the state to East Greenwich, a place you've never heard of and you've never been? Would you want to leave your favorite teacher and your coach that you love? Or would you want to stay with them? Would you want to go to a strange new school where you don't know anyone, or stay at the school that you know and love? Think about how scary it would be to be taken from your home, taken from your parents, who even though they have problems, you love them so much and you know they love you. And then be separated from everyone and everything familiar. Now think, wouldn't it be so great if there was a foster home in your town, in your community, that was available to take you in? If you have to be separated from your parents, wouldn't it at least be great if you could have some of the things stay the same? To stay in the same community, to stay in the same school, to get to stay with your teacher and your best friends? Okay, you can open your eyes now. So I wanted to share that because this is the reality for so many foster kids. Very rarely have I seen a child that's able to stay in their community, and that is because we just don't have enough homes in those communities. So what happens is they're taken from their home and they end up somewhere across state and they go into a new school. They're already going with a family they don't know, going with strangers. But oftentimes they have to leave everything else familiar and have to leave their friends and their teachers and their school. So I want to show you this map, and I apologize because it's very small and I couldn't find a digital version, but if you want, you can come look at it after the service. So this is a map that shows Rhode Island, and on the left, it shows the number of removals by zip code, and on the right is the number of homes that were available in that zip code. So in Warren, there were 13 removals, but only 5 homes available. So those kids that, they had to go across state probably somewhere, and they weren't able to stay in their community. In Bristol, there were 15 children removed, but only 2 homes available. The biggest need, you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of small, but they're circled in red. There's Central Falls. There were 130 kids removed from Central Falls, and only 11 homes in that area. In Woonsocket, there were 98 kids removed and only 34 homes. So you can see there's a really big disparity here. There's a need for more homes. So the latest data at the last meeting I went to with DCYF and all the other agencies shows that we need 200 more homes in Rhode Island to meet the need of the number of kids that are coming in. What happens is when a child gets taken from their home, DCYF will call all of the agencies. So in addition to Boys Town, there's many private agencies in Rhode Island. And they will get the call and they'll try to find a home. But because we don't have enough homes, sometimes there's just not space. The homes that Boys Town has that can't always take the kids. Maybe we don't have enough beds. So what happens to the kids? What happens to those kids when there's no foster home? Well, they're going to end up in a shelter or a group home. And obviously that's not ideal. Imagine being 5 years old and going to a shelter. So we really need homes everywhere, but particularly in places where the disparity is the greatest between the number of kids removed and the number of homes available. So I came here to recruit foster parents, but I know not everyone here is going to be called to that or feel led to that, and that's totally okay. Not everyone is meant to be a foster parent. But some of you might have already been thinking about being a foster parent. Some of you may have just now started to feel some conviction that maybe this is something you want to explore more. So for those interested in learning more, I will be here after the service to answer any questions you have. I've got some swag for you, and I've got some applications if you want to fill out an application and get started with the process. But for those of you who don't feel called to this, but do feel like you want to support foster families or foster children in some way, you can help too. So at my church, we just had a new couple licensed with Boys Town as foster parents. And there were so many people that didn't feel like they could do it, but that they wanted to support that family. And so what happened is my pastor emailed some of the people he knew who wanted to be a support, and they came together. Some of them, well, all of them are praying for the foster family and the foster child that they recently had placed with them. Some of them are helping by cooking meals for the family. Some people might be able to donate directly to the foster family or even to Boys Town to help, children in our care. So there's so many different ways that the church can come together and support a foster child and a foster family. So if anyone here does become a foster parent, they will need a lot of support. And I'm hoping that there's someone here or someone's who are feeling pretty convicted right now, feeling led to maybe find out a bit more. So if you'd like to come talk to me, whatever you're interested in, whatever your capacity is, I'm going to be outside. I've got a table set up after the service. So please come talk to me. I'd love to chat with you more about foster care and the licensing process and how it all works. So thank you.
Awesome. Good job. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Justin Katoya. Like Pastor Sean mentioned, my wife and I actually were family teachers at Boys Town. We worked on the campus in Portsmouth, and we were residential family teachers, and just to kind of give you an idea of what that term even really means. And so essentially we were professional foster parents. We lived on campus there. We lived in one of the homes. We started in one of their teenage homes. We had 6 teenage boys that we took care of. Probably the most overwhelming experience of our young married life. And after a few months of doing that, I actually felt the Lord kind of lay it on my heart. On the campus was a young children's home. They had 6 kids under the age of 5. And I felt like the Lord just was kind of speaking to my heart there. And, I said to my wife, I think if that family, those family teachers ever move out, we should go over there. And she said, that's never going to happen. They've been here for years, and they don't look like they're going anywhere. Literally the next week, we got a knock on the door from our consultant, and he said, you know anybody who wants to be professional foster parents? Because the Finnegans are leaving. And so I looked at my wife, and we just kind of laughed because the Lord's funny like that, right? He just seems to set up those things. So needless to say, shortly after that, we became professional foster parents. We went from 6 teenage boys to 6 children under the age of 5, which was, I thought teenagers were overwhelming. Having to change all those diapers and clean up after all those children, and it was a whole different experience. And I can truly share with you that was probably the most monumental and life-changing experience of both my wife and I, our lives. Not only in those moments, but actually permanently, because as you shared, we ended up adopting 2 of the boys that were in our home. They became a forever part of us. And while we were there, my wife gave birth to our first child. So our oldest is our youngest, which is funny enough. But while we were there, we had the opportunity to meet John and Kim Gagney, which is how you guys came into Bags of Hope. and so, or got to get familiar with what Bags of Hope was. And so for how many of you were here, you guys were part of that mission last year. So as many of you that remember, I don't know if there's anybody here who wasn't, just if there isn't, to give you an idea of what Bags of Hope is. It's an orphan care project that we do every year. And so what the mission is. And so I think that Carole's vision that she had us walk through, that moment of someone coming in and taking you away from your family at this young age, these pivotal years of your life, someone coming in and just saying, okay, you don't live here anymore. Now you got to come and you're going to go live on the other side of this state. You're going to go live with these people you've never met in your life. And a lot of times what happens is those kids, all of their very little belongings that get scooped up in those rushed moments of the police officers and the social workers coming in to take out these children, they just start dumping their stuff in trash bags. Everything that's personal to them, everything that has value or meaning, whether it's a teddy bear, a blanket, one of their favorite toys, everything gets dumped into a black trash bag. What does that tell you you're worth? It tells me I'm worth nothing. I'm trash. The very thing that I threw the scraps of our dinner tells me that that's all I'm worth in this moment. And so forgive me, it still makes me a little emotional no matter how much I talk about this, because that's not my worth. And that wasn't my worth. And that's not these children's worth. No matter whether they're 0 to 18 years old, it doesn't matter. That's not their worth. But that's how they feel in those moments. So the heart of Bags of Hope is to replace that. So we provide, and I have examples, and I probably should have brought one up here, but I have examples out on the table for those that have never seen it. We provide monogrammed duffel bags. So every child gets their name put on a really nice bag. It's not cheap. We don't go the cheap route. It's a beautiful bag. And in that bag gets filled with different items for different age groups, so they are age appropriate. Every kid gets a blanket. Young kids get things like pillow pets and DVDs like VeggieTales or books or age-appropriate things, comfort items. Teenagers, they get older stuff. They'll get a football, a basketball. We kind of change it up year to year. So that's the vision there, is to replace that concept that your value wasn't just a black trash bag with your stuff in it, but you have value. You have something that has your name on it. While we worked at Boys Town, our kids, all 6 of our little kids, they got those bags. Thank you so much, Pastor Sean. Here's a good, this is pretty much what every kid gets every year. Their name is monogrammed on the top, and inside is filled with all kinds of items. Our kids, when we were working at Boys Town, our kids got bags. And every day after those bags were dropped off and put under the tree, every day those kids went to that Christmas tree and they said, "That's mine. That says my name on it. That's mine. That one's for me." And I remember those moments of looking at my wife and saying, "That's so powerful. This, a duffel bag, this is something that they're excited about." So this is our 6th year providing these bags to all the kids throughout Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Rhode Island is 100% covered. And this year we've expanded, I believe we're including the Boston area now, so pretty much all of Massachusetts should be covered as well. So we've really grown. In addition to Rhode Island and Massachusetts, we've been partnering with other people, and we've expanded to Northwest Florida. Last year was our first year in Northwest Florida. We've been contacted by others in Maryland, Connecticut, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Yeah. So something's happening. Something's stirring up. So I just want to encourage you that there is something stirring up in the churches. The church is being stirred to say, hey, there's injustice. There's something wrong. There's something wrong with this picture. These children, they are the helpless. These are the orphans that we're going to call them. There's something missing, and we need to be the voice of those that are helpless. That's pure religion, to not overlook the orphan, to not overlook those who don't have a voice. That's what we're called to be. And so Carole's right. Maybe you can't be a foster parent. Maybe that just can't be something you provide. And so we can't all be foster parents. That's okay, but we can all do something. And so whether it's providing a meal, providing financial support, or here's another way, we operate in this mission to provide a bag for every kid in this area with a bag with their name on it. And so every year, so the way that we do this is every bag, we basically have figured out the cost of what we do each year. So we do $25, and that covers the bag, the monogramming, and everything that goes inside of the bag. John and Kim are brilliant in their ways, and we're on a budget, and the Lord always provides. So last year we did 5,000 bags, I believe I mentioned that already. This year we're gonna not only in those, but we're gonna make sure every kid in Rhode Island and Massachusetts has a bag this year as well. Since the start of Bags of Hope, the number of families that are adopting or fostering in the local church continues to rise. Over 32 families that have been licensed to foster or adopt. Over 60 children have been fostered after starting Bags of Hope, and there's been over 24 adoptions through this ministry. That's amazing. Last year, we raised $150,000, and then to date, we have provided a total of 10,000 bags, monogrammed and distributed to every child. And every single one of these bags not only gets filled and stuffed and sent out a door, we pray over every single one of these bags. We take time to walk through and lay hands and just say, bless this kid, bless this child. Let them know that you are the great Father, that you are their provider. So I just want to say thank you to your church. Thank you for your support last year, and we're so excited to partner again with you guys this year. And we're excited that the Lord is doing something through this ministry. And we look forward to partnering with you guys and seeing what the Lord does in Bags of Hope and through Bags of Hope and through the foster care system in places like Boys Town. And I'm going to be in the back as well with Carole. We're sharing a table back there, so I'll have ornaments out there if you'd like to purchase one. The ornaments, I don't think I mentioned this, but so every bag is $25, right? But we have an ornament with every kid's name on it. So you'll have an ornament for Nikki, basically, and so you can get that ornament and you can hang it on your tree during Christmas time, or you can hang it somewhere in your house. And so we just want that for a reminder for you to pray for Nikki. Pray for that child that's on that ornament, whoever that child is. You don't have to know their last name. You don't need to know their location. You just need to know, God bless Nikki. Let them know they're loved. Let them know that they're precious to you, and however means that happens. So thank you. If you have questions, come find me after service.
Casey, I'm going to bring you up in just a minute. I want to just talk to you a little bit about Bags of Hope, because one of the things that's part of our strategy here at the church is we want to help local businesses attach a cause to what they're already doing. So think about all the for-profit businesses. So I'm going to use an example. My friend Kim, she has her own hair salon. And so I'm going to ask Kim, can you put 10 ornaments in your hair salon? And now you have this beautiful ornament, you have the name on it, and then you just have a little placard with this on it, just explaining what Bags of Hope is. Every single person that now comes and gets their hair cut, there's a story. Kim now gets to share a story about what her church is doing and what God is doing. And this is important because we need to change the conversation about God and church in the community. Many folks, when they drive by the little white church that's fallen apart, it's a little bit dilapidated, is how they characterize all churches. That churches are no longer meaningful. They no longer are doing what they are called to do. They no longer have a voice in the local town square. And so we want to kind of recapture that. And I'm like, we can go up to all the different owners that we know. We all shop somewhere. You might have a relationship with somebody. And maybe just say, would you take 5 ornaments? And just put them in your store, whatever it is. If it's a bigger company, every one of those employees that works there, now the owner gets to share that story with the people that they work with. And it brings value and meaning to something that they do on an every single day basis for a paycheck. Well, we no longer just do it for a paycheck. We want to do it to make a difference in this world. And so as a local church, we get to help the businesses attach a cause to that. So I want you to kind of think outside of not only, I hope that every person in here gets at least 1 ornament, but also if you want to, talk to me about it and say, I have a business that I'd love to take 5 ornaments to this local business, because I believe that person can share this story and get other people to participate that don't come here. Again, we want this to go way beyond this local church. Okay, so I'm excited about that. With that, Casey, you want to come up? I've asked Casey just to share. I'm going to butcher the stat, but I know that she's fostered a lot of kids. It's either in the 20s or the 30s. So I wanted to Casey, because Casey comes to church here, and Aline comes here, and they have just done this as their reality. And I've asked, why should we do it as well? And I'm going to kind of move out of the way and let you guys have the floor.
Okay, we're nervous, so bear with us. We got married in 2003, and a month after we were married, we found out that having our own children was not going to be possible unless we went through a lot of procedures. And I had known since I was 5, that I wanted to adopt. And so I looked at him and I said, let's go be foster parents. And he hit the brakes on the car. I was like, are you crazy? What? And we were living in Texas at the time. And then he said, all right, we'll go to the meeting and let's see. One meeting, he was hooked and we got licensed. And this is how amazing God works. We were not even fully licensed and in the system. And it was December 17th of 2004. And we were due to get on a plane in 3 days to come up here and see our family for Christmas. And we get a phone call that they have a little boy and a little girl that they have nowhere to put them because they were put in a group home because there was no foster home to take them. They were 2 and 6 months old in a group home. And we said, we'll take them. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out the flights. We'll figure it out, bring them. So they bring us these 2 beautiful children, and we ended up adopting them. And then their mother had 3 more that we adopted 2, and my cousin has the other one. And then we moved back up here and said, okay, well, let's open up our home again. And boy, what a roller coaster ride it's been since living in New England. Texas doesn't play. They don't put up with what goes on. They don't allow these parents to get away with stuff. They don't let these kids linger in the system. Massachusetts has been a whole nother cup of tea for us. We have had children that have been with us for 14 months, and then it's been like, oh, they're going to reunify home, or oh, there's been somebody who's adopted a previous child. But at the end of the day, we fostered 45 children in the last 13 and a half years. We've adopted 4. We're in the process of adopting number 5. We go to court in 3 weeks to get guardianship of her sister, so that will make 6. And we have had some hurts, but these children have been worth every bit of hurt that we have gone through. And sometimes, we had a set of twins that lived with us for 8 months, and when we got back into this, we really didn't want to adopt again. But they stole our hearts, and we thought, oh, okay, we're going to adopt. And all of a sudden, a family member came forward, and we were broken for a while, and we were angry with God, how could you do this to us? How could you take these boys away? And then we got my Jadalyn, and it all made sense. You can't replace one child with another, but you find as you go through this process, they're not all meant to be yours. Some you're just meant to heal and mend and fix and then move them to where they're supposed to be. And others, you're meant to raise them. They're part of your family. They're part of you. And so I just say, get ready, because this is not going to be an easy journey. You are going to hold on to God with everything you have. Some marriages we found don't survive this. We got closer. We got closer to God. We got closer to each other. The other thing is, if you do have children and you are going to take this journey, talk to your children. We've met couples that didn't, and their kids are like, what do you mean you're bringing 2 or 3 new kids into our home? What do you mean? So you got to make them a part of it. And our children they are as invested in this as we are. And so talk to them, but it hasn't been easy, but the reward has been worth every struggle, heartache. We're finally at the end of the road with our little one. She's a year and a half, and you know, it's amazing, because the other thing is, you think going through this that you'll never be able to get along with the biological parents. Not every biological parent loses their child because of drugs or because of... Our daughter's mother has mental health issues. She's the sweetest woman you would ever meet. And she lost her because she doesn't have the capacity to take care of her, not because she was sticking needles in her arm or because she was beating on her. And we've actually become very close. And I feel like she's part of my family. And when I first went into this, was like, oh, I'll never get along with biological parents. That's never going to happen. And now she approached us about taking her other daughter because she's with a family member, and it's not a healthy situation. So now we're going to be taking the 2-year-old along with my 1-year-old. And so it's just, you know, it's the rewards, and you know, it's just, God placed this on my heart since I was 5. I knew I was going to adopt. So when we found out that having children wasn't an option, I was like, okay, let's adopt. I've never had that feeling like I missed out because I didn't birth my children. They're my children. I think I love them more because we have gone through hell to be parents. So, and last year, actually, when I saw the bag, our daughter got one. She has one at home. Yep, it was brought to her for Christmas. And the little guy that we had for 14 months that left us in February and went to go be with his sister, all of his stuff went in his bag when he left us. So those bags are very important. When we saw them, we're like, oh, that's what the kids have. So, you know, we need to fight for these kids. These kids need a voice. The system here is broken. After living in Texas and then coming here and seeing the difference of what these children go through and all the back and forth and them allowing things to happen to some of these kids. Like, we've seen kids that have gone back and forth for 5 years, and we're like, obviously these parents are not going to get it together. What are we doing to these children? This is our next generation that we're raising. And we're talking about the opiate epidemic and this and this. Well, we're creating it by doing all this trauma to these children in foster care while they're little. They need to be in homes where they can be loved by godly people and nurtured and cared for, because that's going to go with them for the rest of their lives. So, I mean, we have not regretted it. It's been worth all of it. And Mom, my mom wanted you to meet our children. So these are our kids. So our oldest is Chrissy, and she is almost 15. And this is our son, John, and he's 13. And this is our Caleb, he's 8. And our Kaylee, she's 9. And that's our Jadalyn, who is 1. And we are going through the process of getting her adopted. So it's worth it. You look at these faces, and all the pain has been worth it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So, I think that the church's responsibility is to care and to love. I love how that story brought about the healing, the mending, right? Just standing in the gap for those that can't for themselves. I love how we talked about justice, because we talk a lot about that the church is here. Justice is a big part of why we're here. We're going to transition a little bit. I asked Mark to sing a song just to kind of help us breathe a little bit. So just you can sit and relax, let them sing to us. And then I want to end the service by talking a little bit about Simply Christian. If you want to stand, you can stand, whatever you want to do. Yeah, they're going to want to stand. All right, they're going to stand. All right, let's stand.
Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary, I need your rest. mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I say, you're by my side. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. Truth is, you know what tomorrow brings. There's you have not seen. So in all things, be my life and breath. I want what you want, Lord, and nothing less. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. You are my strength and comfort. You are my steady hand. You are my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. Your ways are always higher. Your plans are always good. There's not a place where I'll go you've not already stood. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. Yep. You are my strength and comfort. You are my steady hand. You are my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. Your ways are always higher. Your plans are always good. There's not a place where I'll go you've not already stood. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you.
See, woo! We can trust in him. That is our hope, right? That's what we're here for. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to transition, and I'm going to read the Bible reading for this morning, but I'm going to ask you to just remain seated. We are called to be an Acts 2 church. So for some of you, that's like, what are you talking about? Acts is A-C-T-S. It's a book in the Bible. And Acts 2, verses 42 to 47, is what kind of God ushered in as saying, this is the kind of church that I want. So here's a quick picture of it. You can see it on the screen. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. This is the picture that God has given to us. And I get emotional because we keep talking about the uncommon life, that we need to care about each other's needs. It starts here, where we love on each other, and we get to know each other, and we get to know each other's story. And then we enter into that pain, and we walk through that with that person. But it doesn't stop there. Then God calls us to go out and to be the light and to bring the gospel, bring the good news, and be the good news. We're going to be starting a series called Simply Christian, and that's going to start next week. And there's a quote by N.T. Wright that I absolutely love talking about these very verses, and he says this: Acts 2:42 is often regarded as laying down the 4 marks of the church. The first one is the apostles' teaching. Secondly is the common life of those who believed. Third is the breaking of bread. And 4 is the prayers. These 4 go together. You can't separate them or leave one out without damage to the whole thing. Just look at those 4 things really quickly. The goal of an Acts 2 church is that the importance of the teaching is coming here on a regular basis and understanding God's word, getting it so that's inside of us. We talk about it all the time. It's not a head exercise. It's not to have, the Bible says, not to have knowledge so it puffs us up in pride, but that we're to not be hearers of the word, but doers of the word. We come here so that we can offset the cultural pulls. There's a lot of things that the culture puts against us that's not biblical. So we're trying to say, what is this kingdom all about? So the teaching matters. And then the common life is this thing that it goes beyond Sunday mornings. The common life is getting to know each other, getting to know each other's story. That's why we're doing this next series. So I'm asking you to get with other people. Don't go on this journey alone. Whether you go to a coffee shop, whether you go to a restaurant, whether you go to someone's home, get in conversation with someone. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The breaking of bread is simply this: to keep reminding one another, to keep Christ in the center of everything that we do. Because that's why we're here. That's the essence of everything that we do. We're here to please Him with this one life that we've been given. And then prayer is what holds it all together. We just did this wonderful series on how important prayer is, because that's what's going to empower us to live that life. When Casey shares their story, they're not doing this by themselves. They're doing it through the power of prayer and God using them to bless these children. So in this series, I am going to ask you, I'm asking for you to make a commitment. It's a 6-week series, and I'm asking you to do your very best to get here on Sunday mornings. And if you can't be here, that's okay. Watch it online. But get involved into the teaching. I'm going to do my best to really do the very best that I can to help you get a teaching that's going to stimulate you to have to think differently, to understand the great story of Scripture. Maybe you haven't seen it quite this way. And then how does that story impact us personally, but then how does it impact us corporately and into the community? This is a series, like I said, for all people, whether you're discovering Christ, whether you've been in Christ for a little while or for a long time. And then I'm asking you to commit to 6 weeks of joining with another person or so. It could be literally 2 other people. So 3 of you go out to a coffee shop. It could be 12 of you at a home. Anything in between. But it's the point of make a 6-week commitment to do life with other people. Now, I want to talk to you about strategy just for a second, because there's a reason why we only do these series twice a year. Last year we did 1, okay? And I looked at it, I said, that's not enough. To do community with each other for 6 weeks out of a whole year wasn't enough. So I told the team, I said, look, we need to do this at least twice this year, and we'll assess it. We'll see if that's a good number. Because what we mess with is this idea of being intentional, but also being organic. And what I mean by that is, I hope every Sunday that you meet somebody, or I hope that you take a relationship that when you met someone, you get to know their story a little bit more. And as you get to know their story and there's needs in their life, that you can come and walk alongside them. That's the organic piece. That's just being loving people, human beings. We're all in this together. Come as you are. But I understand we all get busy, right? Some of us, we can't make it to church every week, so there's a little bit of a disconnect there. And so what do? I say intentionally the church will be responsible to say at least 12 weeks out of the year we'll organize this. We're going to be intentional about trying to get people into groups so that they'll get to know people there. You're going to get to know people a lot more than you do on a Sunday morning. You know, after this, you guys maybe spend 15 minutes or so, and you get to know each other, and it's small talk, which is awesome. We need that. But this is going to that next level. If we're really going to care for each other, we've got to know each other's story. Because I tell you what, it's hard to sit in a group with people, and they're starting to share where they're at. They're sharing their perspectives. They're sharing their opinions. They're sharing their thoughts. They're sharing their heart. Once you know that person, then what I hope happens is now the organic piece kicks back in. I hope that you say, you know what, there's a couple of people that I really hit it off with in my group, and I'd like to continue to develop that relationship with them, okay? Now, if you have church background, a lot of you know that a lot of churches, what I call activity-based or program-based. And the reason why we're not, I need you to get this, because there's a reason, we're being very, very strategic when we're doing it this way. Some churches will try to get you into small groups every single week. And I used to do that because there's a value there. So it's not a negative on other churches that do that. I'm just explaining to you why we don't. I think the value of coming to church every Sunday is huge. Okay? I know I'm biased, but I think it's huge. That value. So as a pastor, I'm saying I really, really want you to come every single Sunday. But then if I have to have you in a small group, I'm just making this up, every Wednesday night now. Now you're in a small group every Wednesday night. And you know what? A lot of churches have men's ministries and women's ministries. So, all right, I need you to go to that. And, so now I got you maybe 3 nights a week. I've got you out doing stuff, all church-related activities, all good things. You know what? There's a great Bible study, too. I really need you to come to that because we got to get in the Word. We got to learn more about the Scripture. Well, when are you going to do that? So these things, again, are very, very good. But we talk about how are we going to live a missional life? How are we going to be part of building God's kingdom in this world if I'm inundating you with getting you to do all church activities? We talk about that. I'm not a fool. I recognize I live in the real world too. I have 3 children. We're busy. You work 40 to 60 hours a week. You're raising children. You don't have a lot of spare time. And I'm asking you to be missional, to go out and live this thing out. Be the good news. And so I'm going to trust that the different things that we do that are organized and intentional will help us to have that foundation, but that we're freeing you up to live this one life fully for God. Because when I talk about community, we'll put that up there. We did a series on carving out margin in our lives. If we can't carve out margin to do 12 weeks out of the year to get with other people to talk about God, to talk about things that really, really matter, we haven't built enough margin in our lives. When I talk about community, right, there's actually go to the other side with the core values. These are the biblical values of a New Testament church. This is how I'm framing these for here at Stone Coast. So you have worship. So that comes right out of the great commandments, like love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, right? So that's worship. That's that basically, I surrender my life to you. I want to live this life fully to please you. Community is this idea of loving others, and I'm going to break that down for you a little bit. And then you have discipleship, which is the Great Commission, all right? Go and make disciples, teaching them all this stuff, all right? And then you have serve, where I believe that God has uniquely wired and gifted you to be passionate about certain things. He's given you gifts so that he can use you to fulfill the purpose that he has in your life. Okay, these are the values I want to see in every single person here at this church. Bless you. But in community, go to the other slide. In community, I've challenged us. I did a series on this. And I said, this is that part about how can we live a godly life outside of here to truly impact and be the light that God has called us to be. We need to be with other Christians first. I talked about that. That's why we need to get together. Why? To encourage one another, to spur each other on in our faith, to help us to grow in our love for Jesus Christ, to help us to live out his ways better and more often, right? That comes through loving each other as Christ followers. The next piece of this is to spend time with what I just call the non-church or the D-church, whatever you want to say, those that don't have a relationship with Christ yet. If we're not being intentionally doing that, who is? That's the bottom line. So if you're so busy in life that you can't go out for a cup of coffee with somebody that doesn't know God yet, how will they ever get to know God? We try to do church in such a way that when you bring somebody, it's a very low risk. We work really, really hard at making this very practical, something that is life-giving, something that can make sense to people from all walks of life. There was I wasn't planning on saying this, but I do this on YouTube, right? You know I put these on YouTube. So I wish I could remember this quote. Let's see if I can do this quickly. Nope, I can't. Too much time. So this person he's commented on the series before, okay? And so he says something like, I'm an atheist pagan. He's saying, he goes, I have to tell you, I can't believe you roped me in every single week. I watch your teachings to an atheist pagan, and every week I get something out of it. And I sit there and go, good, we're doing something right. Because the gospel works. The scriptures work. They're for anyone and everyone. But if we're not engaging in these kinds of conversations and having intentional time with them, if you don't carve it out, it will not happen, right? That's just a fact. It will not happen. And then those that are different than us, those that are on the fringes in our global neighbor. That's our picture of community. Obviously, I'm running out of time, that's why I'm not talking about those other ones. So what I want to encourage you to do, out in the cafeteria, there's a table set up, and it has the Simply Christian. There's a book there. If you want to buy the book, you can. It's not required for this series, but it's if you're a reader and you enjoy reading, this is a phenomenal book. But I would encourage you to sign up for a group. So I think it's like literally every night but Thursday we have groups. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, I think we have groups. If you would like to start your own group, meaning I have online, so on the website, I put it so that you have a leader's guide with the questions. I have all the links to the videos. You can literally go with someone in a coffee shop, bring your laptop, watch the video together, and then have a discussion. I'm just trying to get anyone and everyone to participate in this because I think it's going to be a life-changing journey.